everybody, Beth Helvey, Couture Real Estate here. It is Tuesday, October 13th. I hope y'all are doing well. And we're still talking about new construction. So when you go shopping for new construction, there's some things you kind of need to know about when you walk into new communities and their models. So a few things to know. For example, when you walk into a lot of communities, especially the really large ones, the larger the community, typically speaking, the more choices that you're going to have in a model, okay? There are communities out there that have everything from townhomes, villas, condos, single-family homes to next-gen homes to manor homes, which are the really large, over 3,000, 3,500 square feet. And again, the larger the community, the more choices you're going to have. So when you walk into them and you're looking around the models, you might see 4 or 5, or in some of our smaller communities, maybe 2. And that's not all the choices you have in what's available. So when you go into the model center, they will show you schematics of what else is available. If you are the person that really needs to see something in person, oftentimes you can go to another community by that builder and they may have that particular model. And I'm talking with our big builders, our Neils, D.R. Horton, Lennar, Taylor Morrison, all of those. You can typically go and see a model of what you're interested in, especially if you're also looking online someplace else. And here's something else. When you go looking in the models, one of the things that you have to understand is even on your entry level new construction, and by entry level, I'm talking basically Lennar and D.R. Horton. The reason I'm calling those entry level is because their business model is such that you get little to no choices. You're not going to go to a design center for Lennar and D.R. Horton like you are for the other communities. And because of that, because you only get 3 or 4 choices of a package, that's how they keep their costs down. So whereas when you go to Neil, Taylor Morrison, and a lot of these higher end or medium to higher end communities, you're going to go to a design center and your costs are going to be higher there. Okay. Even when you go into some of these entry level properties, a designer, a professional designer will have gotten a hold of those model homes. When you walk in and you see that the kid's guest room has got this really cute wallpaper or plank walls, or there's beadboard down the hallway, crown molding, chair rails, really great lighting, gorgeous fans, things like that, you don't get that. Even on entry-level properties, they have been kind of tricked out by a designer. And what they're doing is they're showing you how, the best potential of that particular property, the best way it could look. And it helps to know that. It helps to know walking in that when you do close on your property, it's not going to look like that. Now, and even when you go into properties where structural changes are allowed, you're going to walk into their models and they're going to have the pushed out lanai, the pushed out garage. They're going to, hi Joe, they're going to have tray ceilings, crown molding in every room. If there is an alteration where there are some models like Devasta with Sandhill Crane has a model where there is an optional loft. They're going to have the loft in the model so you can see what it looks like. You're not going to see what it looks like without the loft, which actually changes a portion of the downstairs, but they're going to show you with most, if not all, of the options available. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is it looks great. It's gorgeous. I mean, who doesn't like to go looking at new construction homes? They're gorgeous. And the other thing is too, is they want to sell it. Of course they want to sell it. This is sales. And so when you go to these properties and look, that it helps to know what you're walking into. You need to know what the base model is and what you get with that base model. For example, did you know that when you buy a D.R. Horton home, you don't get ceiling fans? Did you know that when you buy in certain Neil communities, you don't get a washer and dryer and you don't get a refrigerator? It helps to know what comes with the house, because you need to know what your budget is and you need to know what you can do and you need to know what's important to you. when you go to the design center, they're going to throw a lot of this stuff at you, but going in before you actually get to the point where you're signing a contract and knowing what you're looking at and what comes with what you're looking at really, really helps. And then here's another thing. We have a lot of builders that are building, because I serve 2 counties, that are building multiple communities within the county. So the model may not necessarily be available in a certain community, but it's available someplace else. Also, you may find that what you can buy in North Sarasota County versus South Sarasota County is different. For example, there's a D.R. Horton townhome community in North Sarasota where you get tile all throughout the downstairs and you get granite in the bathrooms. South Sarasota County, you get carpet in the downstairs, except for the wet areas, and you get the normal marble bathrooms in the bathrooms, the normal marble surface top in the bathrooms. Knowing what those differences are can also help. Okay, and that's part of what you're going to do when you're going to look at new construction. And it helps to actually know what you do and do not get. Okay, and it helps to have somebody with you. And oftentimes, if you do take a realtor with you, the salesperson will leave you alone. They might walk around with you, and that's perfectly fine, because one of the nice things that a salesperson can do is they can answer those questions. Do I get all my appliances? Is the tray ceiling part of the base model, or is it extra? And do you know about how much it is? And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, because there's a lot of changes on that list that you can make. So don't fault them if they don't know how much every single change is, because in some communities that list is long, okay? And they will have a sheet for you. They'll talk to you about the incentives, and that's another video, but they'll talk to you about the incentives, about the community and things like that. Now, here's something else to know about when you're pricing out. When you're pricing out a new community, your lowest price is going to be when they start phase 1, okay? Because a lot of communities are going to have phase 1, 2, 3. The larger communities might even go up to 7 and 8. Your best pricing is going to be in phase 1. Every time they move to a phase, they bump up the base model and the lot prices a little bit. Now, in some communities, they'll even take a particular model and they'll tweak it. So if you love what you saw in phase 1 or 2, by the time it gets to 3 or 4, they may tweak it. There's a model out in Del Webb that did this, because they found that the people who were buying that particular model weren't crazy about a certain feature, so they tweaked it to appease what the public had asked, and it worked. Now, there are some people who really liked how it was to begin with, and some people who really liked the change. It's up to you. So the best time to go is, if you can, phase 1 is when the prices are the best, and sometimes they'll have blowout prices, if you will, before they go to the next phase. They won't actually always start the next phase until they've sold everything in the first phase. So sometimes you can find properties there that haven't been bought, if there's really any left, where they'll mark them down because they need to get rid of them so they can start the next phase. And it has nothing to do with the county or anything. That's just a business model that most builders have, is they're going to do that. So those are some things to know. A couple other things to know when you start into a new community is, if there's fees, there's a possibility that your condo fees, HOA fees, community fees, whatever they are, might go up after the builder leaves. So when you go in, the builder, most of the time, and then they'll get to a point where they're full to a certain point, but most of the time they'll kind of help compensate some of those fees. And they do that to get people in. It helps to get people in, and it helps to get the community off the ground. And then what happens is the builder leaves, turns the community over to the residents. The residents now have to form a board. They're oftentimes working with an association management company, and they may find that those fees need to be tweaked. Maybe you need a little bit more insurance. Maybe you're going to hire a different lawn company. Maybe the lawn company has an increase in their fees, or they were giving the builder a special discount because they service like 4 communities, something like that. But you might find that that's a really, really good question to ask, is historically, does that builder have an increase of fees once that builder leaves that community? Okay. And sometimes it's a lot. Sometimes it's like $50. So it really doesn't make much of a difference. But those are the things to know, is at what phase are they? Has a board taken over, or is the builder still in charge of the association? So these are a lot of the questions you need to go before you even go and sign a contract. You don't want to get surprised at the end to find out that, you know, your fees might be $300 a month now, but when the builder leaves, they bump up to $400, which, you know, may not be likely. But these are things that you need to know ahead of time. You need to know before you sign your contract that your home doesn't come with a washer and dryer because this builder doesn't provide one. Okay, these are things you need to know ahead of time, and these are part of the reason why, one of the big reasons why it helps take a realtor, because we do this all day. And I've talked to a lot of people who are selling their new construction home that went without a realtor, that got to the closing table and were surprised, or got to the design center and didn't realize that they were also there to buy their appliances. Get this information up front. You will be happier doing it up front, even if it takes you a few days to do your research, than feeling pressured at contract when you sign, or when you go to the design center and then realize you've got to buy a washer, dryer, and a refrigerator that you were intending to buy. Okay. And just a real quick thing about the design center. When you're doing your research, what I tell people is, if you're on a budget and you're trying to keep your costs down, you put your money in your floors and you put your money in your kitchen, because those are going to give you the biggest return. So light fixtures, the little knobs on your cabinets, some things like that. Sometimes you can get those less expensive elsewhere. Sometimes they're a really good deal there. For example, I sold a really nice Neil villa a few years ago where the homeowner really wanted a particular shade that wasn't offered by the builder. It only cost her $850 to have her entire 1,500 square foot villa painted. That was worth it. However, they were charging a ton of money for the water, for the sink fixtures. So she got the basic and traded them out at a later date. Those are the things we need to know. So this is a lot of information. It's not really gelled very well, but some things to remember from this is, when you go and look at the models are tricked out. Every single model, no matter what property you go to, there is going to be something that you're not going to get at the model center, at contract, or at design that is going to cost you extra. Always, okay? Always, 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 there's going to be something. So be aware of what those changes are, because then when you walk in and you're wowed because the model is so beautiful, make sure that when you walk in, you understand what those differences are. It'll really, really help you make better decisions. Also understand that, you know, all the models present may not be what's available. You may need to go to other communities if you feel like you need to see those in person, and that's easy to do. That's easy to find out. It's easy to go see. Worst case scenario, you're driving 30, 40 minutes to that community. At least you can lay eyes on it, and that's what's important if you're the person that needs to be visual. So find out what all that stuff is before you sit down and you write the contract. Before you do, find out what the base pricing is. Find out what the base model is. Find out what the fees are and the charges are for things. Trust me, because it can get expensive if you're not careful. And you do not want to buy a $400,000 house to walk away at closing having spent $550,000 and then needing to sell it in 5 years, and you can't because you over improved it. So be smart about it. So if you have any questions on new construction, throw them in the comments or DM me. I am happy to answer anything. The model question came up yesterday, late yesterday. Somebody had asked me how much design goes into a model. So that's why I covered that today. If you have any questions on real estate in general, throw it in the comments or DM me. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. It is a beautiful day. We're still warm, although I hear we're getting a cold front this weekend, which means we're going to be like in the low 80s. It is beautiful outside. If you have the chance to get outside and get some vitamin D, I encourage you to drink your water, wear your sunscreen, and I will talk to you later. Bye, everybody.